For question 13, it's a variation question. So you can see that there's no such words as part or partly. So this is a question that is joint variation. So as always, we would separate from the word varies. So u varies. So u equals to, when we make it an equation, to a constant k and directly as square root of v, so times the square root of v, and at the same time inversely, so inversely we have to use the divide sign, inversely as w. Okay, so this question is a little bit different than what DSE questions normally like, but the method is still the same. So this here we would make the k as a constant. So all we need to do is to move the terms around a little bit, where the w is divided here at the moment, so you times it to the u, and at the same time you divide the square root of v to the other side, so that you get the k constant alone. Okay, so if we remember, the way that DSE questions play around with these such questions is they either magnify it by a certain factor, so the whole term gets squared up or cubed up. Normally they square it because especially in this case when there's a square root, they would square the whole equation, so it becomes u squared v w squared over v. Okay, so they just like to play that way, or they just flip the whole fraction upside down. Okay, because the constant, when you square it, it's still a constant, and when you flip it, it's still a constant, because as is a constant. So we would then, in this case, make such equations for all three options as well, and see if they match somehow as the question. Okay, so first one, u squared equals to k directly as v, inversely as square root of w. Okay, square of w. So you're gonna do the same. You multiply the w squared over and divide it by the v, and that's gonna equal to k. Okay, so this is actually the option where we magnify the whole thing. Can you see that? Everything is magnified, so it's still a constant. So in that case, number one is true. And then we're going to look for number two the same way. For number two, v equals to k directly as w and inversely as square root of u. And this gives us u squared v squared u over w, and that's equal to k. Now if you look at this one, the u and the w are side by side in our question, and then in this case it's being in the opposite side, it's just like division. So therefore this number two can never be correct. So number two is the wrong constant. Okay, because remember, we can only magnify or flip the whole fraction completely. So not just a specific term moved to the other side of the fraction. That would not be the same constant anymore. Okay, and then for number three, we do the same again. W varies directly as the square root of v and inversely as u. And when you do the movement of the terms, you find out that actually it makes the exact same thing as the constant that they gave us in the question. It's just that the u and w is in the opposite place, but when you multiply, it's still the same. So in this case, number one and number three is true. So if that's the case, the option is B.